The silence of 2:47 a.m. is shattered by a terrifying scream. Welcome to This Explainer. If you're a parent, you know exactly that physical jolt. It literally shakes you to your core. Today, we're going to uncover the deeply reassuring science behind your baby's most intense, inconsolable crying. You're exhausted. You've done absolutely everything right, but they're still crying. We're going to dive into the actual neurological and physiological truth of what they are experiencing right then. And I promise you, this is going to completely shift how you view bedtime, from a place of pure fear and exhaustion to a place of wonder and profound scientific understanding. So, what is actually happening inside your baby when they seem so unreachable in those early morning hours? It's honestly the most isolating feeling in early parenthood. You're holding them, whispering right in their ear, swaying them gently, but it feels like they're just somewhere you can't follow. You start rapid-firing questions in your head. Are they in pain? Did they hear something? Are they okay? It's incredibly disorienting because this isn't that ordinary cry you've learned to decode, the one that just means I'm hungry or change my diaper. No, this one looks and sounds like pure terror. And yet, mysteriously, 5 minutes later, they might be peacefully asleep against your chest like absolutely nothing happened. In the pitch black of the nursery, your mind instantly races with guilt. You are absolutely convinced your little one is experiencing some deep, unnameable, physical or emotional suffering. And worse, that you somehow failed to prevent or identify it. That helplessness, it's so heavy, it honestly feels like drowning. But here's the thing, we naturally project our own adult emotional landscape right onto our babies. When we hear a scream of that magnitude, our adult brain instantly interprets it as a signal that something is terribly, terribly wrong, that they're in distress and they desperately need us to rescue them from suffering. But here is the profound scientific truth, and if you take away nothing else from this explainer today, let it be this. Your baby is completely safe. They are not experiencing adult-like emotional suffering. They aren't experiencing conscious pain at all. The answer is not what you fear. When your baby is crying inconsolably, it doesn't mean they're in pain in any narrative sense. There is no thought process in their beautiful developing mind saying, I'm hurting or I'm suffering. What's genuinely occurring neurologically is radically different from the conscious distress we keep imagining. Instead, what's happening is that their brand new, completely unfiltered amygdala is experiencing sensory flooding. It's an overwhelming activation caused by the day's accumulated input. Think about everything your baby has experienced today. Just the ordinary everyday things. The bright sunlight coming through the window, the varying sounds of voices, doors closing, the subtle shift in temperature when you walked outside, the rough and soft feelings of different fabrics against their sensitive skin. Now, to us, these are just background details. We don't even register them. But to a brand new nervous system, this is a massive, constant stream of data. By the time evening or night rolls around, the cumulative load of all these microscopic sensory experiences becomes way more than their young nervous system can comfortably hold. Now, the actual mechanics of that overload are really fascinating. The amygdala is the brain structure responsible for processing emotional information and arousal. Yours has years and years of context to help filter out the noise. Your baby's, it doesn't have that yet. It receives all input at maximum volume, constantly. When this completely immature system reaches its absolute holding capacity, it biologically has to discharge that pressure. Crying is simply the involuntary mechanism it uses to literally empty itself out. Think of it like a jar of water you've been shaking all day. Just because you stop shaking it and set it on the counter doesn't mean the water inside instantly stops moving, right? The crying is the nervous system actively releasing that accumulated internal motion. To really understand these intense nighttime awakenings, we have to look at their sleep architecture. Newborns spend a staggering 50% of their night in active, green-building REM sleep. For context, adults spend maybe 20 to 25% in REM. So why is it so incredibly high for our babies? It's because REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, is where the brain does its most intense developmental work. It's the workshop where the nervous system rehearses, practices, and frantically prepares for this big new world it's trying to figure out. Think of it as an incredibly fast-paced, intense neurological software update. During this update, their nervous system is firing at absolute full capacity. But because they lack a mature regulatory layer to contain all that electricity, the physical spillover sounds exactly like a terrified scream. See,
In an adult, we have a sophisticated regulatory layer that keeps our REM sleep activity from reaching our muscles and vocal cords. We might twitch a little, but we stay mostly still. A baby's regulatory layer is still very much under construction, so all that intense neurological firing, the rapid heart rate fluctuations, the amygdala lighting up like a Christmas tree, it just spills right outward into the body. It expresses itself in its purest, most unfiltered form. It absolutely sounds like terror, but there is zero fearful thought behind it.
This intense phenomenon is often what's known as a sleep terror or pavor nocturnus, and this is fundamentally different from a bad dream. We really need to spend some time here because this is a completely crucial distinction that most parents are just never ever taught. When your baby screams out in the first few hours of the night, your immediate protective parent instinct is probably, oh no, they had a nightmare. But medically and biologically speaking, a sleep terror operates on a completely different set of rules than a nightmare. Comparing these two states honestly changes everything. Well, a nightmare is a scary story happening in lighter REM sleep. A sleep terror occurs in the deepest stage of restorative slow-wave sleep, stage 3 sleep. A nightmare has actual content. It has a plot, a monster under the bed. And when a child wakes up from a nightmare, they're oriented and they remember being scared. A sleep terror, on the other hand, has absolutely zero emotional narrative or fear attached to it. None. It is just raw physiological discharge. The nervous system fires, the body activates, the vocal cords release, all while the brain remains deeply, deeply anchored in one of the heaviest sleep states a human can possibly enter. So when your baby doesn't respond to your comforting arms during one of these episodes, it's not because you're failing them. It's because their conscious brain is physiologically offline, deep inside their own developing mind. It's like you're trying to reach someone who isn't even in the room. This is exactly why they don't seem to see you, hear you, or feel your warmth during a sleep terror. The part of their brain that registers your presence is quite literally powered down for maintenance. You aren't failing to comfort them, they just cannot perceive you right in that moment. Once you really know this, the guilt just washes away. They aren't trapped in a bad place, they are just doing the incredibly deep, heavy lifting of brain construction. But what about the evenings? You know the ones, when they fight sleep with everything they have, turning the 7:43 p.m. bedtime into an absolute heartbreaking battle. You've done the warm bath, the room is perfectly dim, they're blinking slowly, and then, boom, they arch their back and just start screaming. Why does this happen? Well, because adult exhaustion and infant exhaustion are entirely different biological events. When adults get tired, our bodies just surrender. We naturally move toward rest. But when a baby becomes overtired, their nervous system interprets that extreme fatigue not as acute as sleep, but as a profound literal threat to their survival.
The crucial point here is this biochemical sequence. In an infant, extreme overtiredness triggers this ancient biological alarm that floods their tiny body with cortisol, the stress hormone. And this creates a rigid biochemical loop that fights against sleep like friction on a slide. The body detects tiredness without sleep, assumes there must be some sort of grave danger present keeping them awake, and so it releases cortisol to keep the baby alert and safe. Suddenly, your completely exhausted baby has a massive shot of adrenaline. The more you try to put them down, the more they fight, and the more that cortisol builds. What looks like stubbornness to us is actually a biochemical state your baby cannot just choose their way out of. And this hormonal loop is exactly why leaving an infant alone in distress doesn't actually produce genuine peace. The cortisol remains elevated, and the baby's nervous system simply exhausts its options and completely shuts down. Researchers at the University of Bristol actually studied infants who were left alone to cry, and what they found is astonishing. Even after the babies eventually stopped crying and lay completely quietly in the dark, their cortisol levels remained just as intensely high as when they were actively screaming. The outward behavior stopped, sure, but the internal stress response did not. They hadn't magically learned to self-soothe. Their nervous system had just run out of moves and entered a state of learned helplessness. The silence isn't calm. The silence is shut down. We really have to understand that to a primal, pre-verbal mammalian brain, being left alone to sleep is interpreted as a profound vulnerability. It's a literal threat to their survival. The expectation of solitary sleep in a separate, dark room, that is an extraordinarily recent invention in human history. Your baby's nervous system hasn't received that modern update yet. For hundreds of thousands of years, an infant who fell asleep alone was an infant in mortal danger. Lowered alertness implied life-threatening danger. So that baby fighting sleep when you put them down, they're executing a flawless survival protocol. They're protesting the separation because their ancient brain literally equates proximity with life itself. They desperately need your warmth. They need your smell and your steady heartbeat. Why? Because your physical presence is the exact biological safety signal that tells their ancient brain, okay, we are safe, it is okay to release into sleep. That close physical contact isn't some luxury, and you are definitely not creating a bad habit. It is a biological requirement. When they feel you, their nervous system registers safety, and only in perfect safety can the ancient brain turn off that cortisol alarm and allow restorative sleep to finally take over. You are literally their external nervous system. You are their regulator.
By comforting them, you were acting as that external nervous system, slowly and lovingly helping them build the internal wiring they need to eventually cross the bridge into calmness on their own. Every single time you soothe them, every time you hold them through that messy, exhausting evening transition, you are giving their brain the vital data it needs. You're helping them map the safe transition between arousal and rest. You are doing the neurological heavy lifting for them. You're acting as their anchor until their brain matures enough to do it independently.
So, as you stand in the dim nursery tonight, completely exhausted but fully present, I want you to take a deep breath. Remember that your baby is not suffering. They are simply a brand new nervous system doing its absolutely hardest work, perfectly safe in your loving arms. The crying is a necessary release, the fighting is ancient biology, and that terror, it's just the sound of a little brain brilliantly building its future. Your presence in the dark is doing exactly what it was beautifully designed to do. I really hope this explainer has brought you some profound peace of mind today. Think about this the next time that 2:47 a.m. silence shatters. With this science in your hands, how will it change the way you hold them in the dark tonight? Keep learning, keep nurturing, and we'll see you next time.